Should you really be buying a house in 2024? Stay tuned. It's not always a great time to buy a home, and right now might be one of those times with rising inventory, home prices still high, and a slowing housing market. So the question on everyone's mind is, should I buy now or should I wait? And in this video, we're going to break down the current housing market in a little bit more detail, weigh the pros and cons on waiting versus buying, and help you decide the best move for your situation, giving you a real-life example, running through the numbers on what it looks like to rent and the median home right now versus what it looks like to buy the median home right now. So with that said, let's get into it. And I want to start today's video by addressing the question of whether or not the housing market is going to crash. Just because prices have gotten out of whack when it comes to affordability, interest rates are still really high, and obviously, yes, it's very expensive right now to buy a home. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of people miss out waiting on this opportunity, trying to time the market, watching these videos that are spreading fear out there, and they're getting caught up in all the craziness of those videos. And in many cases, it's completely taken over the way that they're thinking about home buying versus renting. And it's a process that I really want to dive into today. But with that, I actually want to be very, very clear. A housing crash is extremely unlikely at this time. Nobody is predicting that. And I realize, again, home prices are really high and affordability is low. And I realize that the house you're looking at buying now is significantly more expensive than a couple of years ago. But the primary reason for that is because we've had way more buyer demand than we've had supply of homes. So until that changes, nothing's going to change. And that's really what's driving the housing market right now, and will continue to drive that housing market as we move forward. So in order for you to see a crash, you're going to need to have way more supply than you have buyer demand out there in the market. So I want to throw a chart here on the screen. And at the moment, from Resi Club, this graph shows where we are nationwide, as well as different markets across the United States when it comes to the number of buyers out there versus the number of sellers. And as you can see from that chart, most of the markets out there still have way more buyer demand than they have sellers willing to sell those homes, which in turn provides housing stability more so than it does any declines in pricing. But at the same time, yes, there are some markets around the country, maybe Florida, Louisiana, parts of Texas, where not only has housing supply increased, but they've seen prices pull back. But even then, we haven't seen a crash, and we're not likely to see a crash because you don't have a massive distress in the marketplace. So again, until you have way more homes on the market than you do right now, you're not going to see a housing crash. And even here in Los Angeles, you've seen the inventory double about 200 to 300% since the beginning of the year. Even then, you do not have enough inventory to meet the demand. Unfortunately, if you're one of those doom and gloomer out there, this is not going to happen, the market crashing. So instead of focusing on market speculation, you should really be focusing on your personal circumstances, where you are in life, and that's what we're really going to talk about in today's video when you break it all down. I'm Scott Himmelstein with the Scott Himmelstein Group. I've been doing this for over 20 years here in Southern California, and my channel is all about helping buyers and sellers navigate the home buying process. So if you find any value in today's video, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up. And if you want to stay updated on topics like this or see home tours, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. So I started today's video by saying it's not always a great time to buy a home right now. And right now might be one of those times. The reason I made that statement is because housing affordability sucks on top of inventory being low in so many markets out there. And for home buyers, it's expensive for one versus renting. And in many cases, buyers out there can't even find the home that they're looking for. And when you compare it to what you're currently renting, it's really hard to justify those numbers, which is exactly what we're going to go over in just a minute. But if you're considering waiting, I want to go over some times when waiting actually makes sense. And the very first one in this market, to me, that's the most important, is that if you don't have a longer term horizon, if you don't plan on being in the property at least 5 years, then to be honest with you, it's probably better to go out and rent a home, actually. And the reason why I say that is because housing is appreciated so much over the course of the last couple of years. There's a really high likelihood that we're not going to see the same growth like we have over the last 5 to 10 years. So right now, we're probably looking at more of a 2 to 4% annual growth. That's what most experts are predicting. So this is opposed to the 10, 12, 15, 30% growth that we saw in 2020 and 2021. Obviously, that's not sustainable. And so because it costs you money to buy that home, and it's also going to cost you money to sell that home, well, you're probably going to need at least a few years in that home getting some appreciation in order to recoup the cost of buying and selling that property. In fact, I had a conversation with a buyer a couple of days ago who asked me, hey, do you think if I bought a home right now that I could sell it in a couple of years and take that equity and buy something bigger, something more along the lines of what I'm looking for long term? And I actually said, no, I don't think that's a good strategy. I think at the moment you need to be buying a home that you see yourself in the home for the next 5 years, which means if you're currently single, maybe you're dating someone and you're thinking about getting married, you're thinking about having kids, and the same for the family, and that maybe already has a child and they're looking to add another one to the family. You don't want to buy that 1-bedroom property or the 2-bedroom condo. You want to be thinking a little bit longer term when it comes to buying a home. But there's also other times of waiting where, hey, maybe you don't have financial security in your life. Maybe you don't know where you're going to be in the next couple of years with your job or your occupation, whether or not you're going to even be in the same city or state here in Southern California. And you can take that into account also. Relationships. Maybe you're not in a stable relationship at the moment. You're trying to figure out where you're going to be in that relationship when it comes to that the next couple of years. And you think you may want to jump in with somebody, but maybe you want to wait till you figure out what part of your life, before you actually jump into a property. That could end up changing that timeline for you that we said was really important. But on the flip side of that, the most important thing that happens when you buy a home is that you're able to fix your housing costs and let you avoid those inevitable rent increases that are going to happen over time. And the earlier in your life that you can actually fix your housing costs, the better off you're going to be long term, because the older you get, in theory, the more money you're going to make. You're going to move up that corporate ladder, or the more business you're going to bring in, so your income is likely going to increase over time. So the earlier in life you can fix that housing price versus succumbing to whatever the market dictates when it comes to rent, better off you're going to be long term. And with that, if you have relationship stability, if you have job security, if you know where you're going to be in your relationship, you know where you're going to be in your employment, you have that long-term horizon, then now might be the best time to take advantage of the market, especially as rates are coming down right now, to fixing your housing costs. And two of the other things that come with buying a home is equity building piece of the puzzle. So every single month when you make your mortgage payment, you're paying down the principal balance of that mortgage, essentially putting money into a forced savings account. Now that the money is not easily accessible, which, to be completely honest, is a really good thing for most people. And now you're being able to reaping the rewards of that home value increasing over time. And this is where I really want to provide some real life examples right now of renting at the median rent. So the median rent nationwide is about $2,100 a month. That's nationwide. In Los Angeles, that's $2,700 a month, and that includes apartment and houses. And if you were just to look at single-family houses here in Los Angeles County, you're looking at about $4,500 a month is the median home price to rent a home right now, right? So nationwide, the median home price to buy is $412,500. Obviously, here in Southern California, that is a lot higher here in Southern California. So the median price here in Southern California in Los Angeles County is $967,000. But if you're looking at a single family home, it's actually $1.1 million, right? Okay, so that's obviously, you're thinking to yourself, Scott, my rent in my area here obviously is, $5,000 a month, and home prices range anywhere from $900 on up. I completely understand. And in those circumstances, it can be very difficult to come up with a down payment in order to buy those homes. But understand, the more expensive home you're buying, the more expensive rent you have to pay if you're living in that area. So these are the numbers that we're actually going to be going into right now. So if you're putting down, let's just say 20% down on a conventional loan, so a down payment of 20%, you're going to end up financing with, as far as the principal and interest goes, on $1 million property, your principal and interest will be $4,925.74. Your property taxes will be approximately $1,017.50, and your insurance will be about $416.67. Now, I kind of figured it probably closer to about $500 a month, especially if you're in a fire zone, that could be a little higher. So that comes out to a total of $6,360 a month. Again, this is an estimate. I'm not a lender. You need to talk with a lender to get the exact figures. Now, you might be watching this and saying, Scott, well, hey, you could said I could rent for about $4,500 a month. Why would I buy a house that's $6,360 a month payment right now? And hold on, we're going to go over that in a second. So, all right, so you're watching this and you're saying, Scott, you don't need to go any further. This makes perfect sense for me, and I understand, but when you're comparing buying versus renting, you can't just look right about now. You have to look into the future. You have to look 10 years from now, 15 years from now. So we're going to figure out what you'd be paying in rent versus what that house looks like if you bought. And if we do that, we're currently renting at $4,500 a month, then we have to assume that rent is going to increase over the next 10 plus years, and it's probably going to go up about 3% a year, which in our example here, which is going to take about 14 years for you to reach the same cost that we're paying the mortgage of $6,300 a month. So yes, you're paying $6,300 a month for the next 14 years if you own the home, whereas if it's taking you 14 years to get that same amount, so it can make sense to buy versus, well, hey, during that 14-year period, you actually paid $756,000 and you didn't get anything into your forced savings, right? You just helped pay the landlord's mortgage down. And that's really where the benefit of home ownership comes in during that 14-year period. You actually paid the balance of that mortgage down, which means even if the property didn't go up in value at all, you now have $285,600 in equity. But we do know that homes usually appreciate over time. In fact, the average home in the United States has appreciated over about 4.6% over the last 65 years now. Now, that's not a straight line. Sometimes it goes up 10%. Some years it goes down 2 to 5%. Sometimes it's flat. In some cases, again, it could be a negative number, but the average is 4.6%. Well, last year, the home prices went up about 6.7% in LA County. But I said, well, what if the home just appreciated 3% per year for 10 years, and say the last 4 years, it was flat, it didn't go up at all. So over that 14-year period of time, that home actually increased 30%, which is less than the 3% a year per that home, and that would make the house worth, for when you bought it for $1 million, would make it worth $1,420,000, which now means you not only have $285,600 in equity, you have $705,600 in equity. And every single month after that, you're still paying down the principal versus renting the next year, your rent is going up another 3%, and it's going to take you higher and higher eventually than what your mortgage payment is. And the following year, it's going to go up again now that you fixed your housing costs. And that's what it really comes down to at the end of the game. So this is where the benefits of appreciation, that you're getting the real rewards of home ownership. Now, I realize for some people, it's a stretch. I totally understand that for what the cost of home ownership is right now. But really, I think it's something you just got to start planning out and talking to yourself, where do you want to be moving forward? In fact, I'd love to know where you are in the process right now. Have you been looking to purchase right now? Do you already own real estate? Are you waiting for some reason to buy now? From any other reason? I'd love to hear from you and let you know what you actually think. So, hey, thanks again for watching this video. I'm Scott Himmelstein with the Scott Himmelstein Group. You can always shoot us a message. Reach out to us at 818-396-3311. That's 818-396-3311.